This mobile water sculpture is a unique environmental statement, particularly relevant to Hornsby, an area retaining extensive unspoiled natural areas with abundant land and marine-based flora and fauna. Its symbolism is contrasting man's historically joyful creativity with his rapidly increasing ability to coexist with virtually all forms of life on Earth. The sculpture is designed to evoke curiosity and fascination, being a fantasy, a cacophony of movement and flying water, half solid and half liquid, constantly changing its facet and profiles. It is a celebration of the joy and complexity of living, and its polarity a reminder that we must invest responsibly in that joy, together with our history, our art, the environment, and the ability to live as we know it. The urgency of time is emphasized by incorporating 3 ancient water clocks, modified to suit the sculptural form. A 4th century BC Greek clepsydra or filling clock, a 2.3 meter diameter 11th century Chinese water wheel clock, and a 15th century Swiss pendulum clock, slightly larger than Big Ben. The sculpture also incorporates a 17-note tubular cast bronze carillon, or chime set, designed as an operating musical instrument and ring to the hour, and based on an existing 250-year-old design located in an Old English church. The complete sculpture, including clocks and carillon, are mounted on a floating pontoon rotating twice every 24 hours, symbolizing our rotating ecosystem, with a water display indicating the time on bronze Roman numeral set in the surrounding pond. All sculpture mechanisms and movements are being driven by water only. The sculptors suggest that we have reached a watershed or turning point in history, symbolized by the environmental aspects, the dare we forget clock phase, and its emphasis on the polarity of man. That is, man's joyful complexity of creation exemplified the ancient redesigned mechanisms incorporated, versus the environment we are so rapidly destroying. Man took 10 million years to breed 1,000 million people, but only 140 years to increase to 5,200 million, a species out of control. It pays tribute to the ancient beauty of Hornsby Shire's environment and humanity's need to remember their responsibility to our fellow animals, human and otherwise, to consciously preserve these gifts for our children's children. Sculpted and cast in bronze are represented local fauna, including tawny frogmouth, rainbow lorikeets, pied cormorants, fairy penguin, witch chick, pelican, water dragon, blue-tongued lizard, goanna, the gray-headed flying fox or fruit bat, brush-tailed possum, the noble sea eagle above the pendulum clock weighing 142 kilograms, with a 2.1 meter wingspan, and Homo sapiens as mother and child, with frailty, the only species to invent and use the gun. This totally unique and utilitarian mobile sculpture, constructed from cast bronze, fabricated stainless steel, and toughened plate glass, is 8 meters tall, and weighs approximately 20 tons, complete with rotating pontoon. The sculpture was conceived, designed, engineered, and sculpted by Victor Cusack, and built together with his partner, XVth, in their fine art bronze foundry. The sculptor's descriptions of the philosophy, operation, origin, and symbolism of each major part are on this and other plaques mounted around the pond wall. This plaque was donated by the sculptor's wife, Deirdre Stewart. pendulum clock is undoubtedly the largest water-driven pendulum clock ever built, and is probably the third largest pendulum clock in the world, having the same 4-second completed time cycle, but a heavier counterweight, 350 kilograms, than Big Ben in the UK. The first crude water-driven pendulum clock was designed, but never built, by the 7th century Swiss, Claude Perrault in 1669. Hornsby's design was a considerably modified version using modern materials. The 5-meter-long pendulum, operating on a knife edge, has a theoretical moment length of 3.97 meters, swinging a 350 kilograms counterweight on a 4-second time cycle. The pendulum is driven by gravity, the small forces generated by the wind resistance and system friction being overcome by the top drive discharging water under the sea eagle sculpture by moving the glass chutes. The glass second wheel is moved by uniquely shaped double escapement ratchets, driven in each direction by the pendulum on a 2-second cycle. The wheel's 30 pins resulting in 1 revolution per minute. The semicircular cam mounted on the second wheel releases the large lower drive holdback arm every 30 seconds, twice per minute. The lower drive, which discharges 100 kilograms of water from its large glass drive chutes, with each 30-second movement, moves the minute wheel once every minute, and the hour wheel every 12 minutes, by means of a ratchet that normally pushes against the minute wheel pins, but which also catches the moves in inset hour wheel pin every 12-hour movement. Those 1.6 meter wheels, made of toughened glass, can be seen together with the operating ratchet driven by the lower water chutes behind the clock face, and are connected directly to the minute and hour hands of the clock. The Dare We Forget clock face, sculpted with its joyful background of local lorikeets, frog mouths, possums, lizards, and fauna, also reminds us that we are losing species on our Earth due to our sometimes insensitive land use, and to learn to preserve our shared environment for our children. The structure is sculpted with Aboriginal art forms as a reminder that Hornsby once maintained a strong tribal population that suffered the same fate as animals are suffering. The counterweight is sculpted in Swiss Art Deco, in the form of man chained to time, relating back to the theme. The pendulum clock is also arranged to control the pontoon speed of rotation, to ring the chimes on the hour, and to supply water to the Chinese water clock. A 17-note tubular cast bell bronze carillon, or chime set, has been incorporated, partly as a sculptural form, partly to chime the hour, and partly as a traditional ancient musical instrument that can be played on festive occasions, with or without an accompanying orchestra. The actual tubes, hammers, configuration of playing mechanism, and tuning are all identical to the Harringtons of Coventry, tubular chimes invented in 250 years ago, and patented by that now defunct company. The frame has become a bronze sculptural form rather than the box-like timber frame of the original design. The source data for this one was located by the sculptor in a church in Haywards Heath in Sussex, UK. But in fact, there are a number of Harrington chime copies of various quality in churches in Australia. Hornsby's set has more notes than any Harrington set ever built, most of which has 6 to 9 chimes only. It was tuned to concert pitch with the help of CSIRO's sound laboratory scientists, and is designed to play on festive occasions in solo recitals or accompanying an orchestra. The tubes weigh approximately 1 ton, covering the octave above C+, 3 notes above, and G notes below. The instrument is plated by pulling the handles on the playing frame. The clepsydra, the first known man-made clock, is a simple stationary vessel, which is slowly filled with water trickling from a tank kept meniscus full. The rate of water filling is measured as a time scale. It was first attested to before the 16th century BC in ancient Babylon, and shortly after in Egypt. The older clepsydras had sloping sides and were rather inaccurate. Records indicate that the Greeks were probably the first to have more accurate cylindrical vertical clepsydras, and references indicate that they were not common in the 4th century BC. The clepsydras is an original modern version in updated materials, balancing and counterweighting two tubes on bearings side by side in such a way that they overbalance when full to discharge their own water, and return to the vertical filling position when they are empty, thus creating both movement and the display of water plunging into the outer pool. The sculpted forms include a traditional Greek ram's head as a counterweight and a hermaphrodite, male and female, Greek head, symbolizing man splitting himself, his value system, in half, in confusion. The tipping motion occurs when the water filling either tube flows into the forward set Greek hermaphrodite head, thus overbalancing the clepsydra to empty the water. The Chinese water wheel clock, 2.3 meters in diameter and weighing approximately 1 ton, is constructed from a bronze and toughened plate glass, and incorporates 20 articulated counterweighted buckets, which are normally filled with water from a tank kept meniscus full. The front bucket overcomes a counterweight, and falls to trip a lever connected by a cable to catch on top of the water wheel, which is released to allow the wheel to rotate one bucket space only. By controlling the rate of water entry, the rotating wheel can be used as a clock face. The source of water wheel clock design was a wooden one originally built in China by Su Song during the period AD 1088 to 1092 as part of an observatory tower. It was used to rotate a complete tower at a speed designed to keep a crude sundial constantly pointing at the sun. The time scale, size, and materials of this water wheel have been varied to suit the sculpture. However, it has substantially the same form and principle of the operation as the original. The complete structure is mounted on a floating pontoon, which rotates twice each day. It is rotated by means of water pumped into a clockwise direction, swirling in the inner pond in which the pontoon floats, and is positioned by a water-driven cylinder pushing against a catch device on the pontoon edge, locked into one of the 60 plates cast into the inner pond wall, above the water spilling into the outer pond and around the pontoon. This catch is released every 12 minutes by means of a lever in the pendulum clock, impacted by the ratchet which rotates the minute hourglass wheels, thus freeing the copper water filler chutes to lift the catch, which releases the pontoon to rotate the distance of 1 plate, or 5 plates per hour. You will observe a concentration of water being directed at one point, located under the 1-minute intermittent discharge of the pendulum's clock's lower drive, and near the end of the carillon, towards the Roman numerals mounted in the outer pond. Those bouts, subject to the setting the pontoon position correctly, are pointing to the time of day, as the outer pond is actually a large clock face.